What's going on, everybody? My name is Terminus, and today, in this very video, we are going to do the long-awaited December update. uh, I mean, I don't do these regularly. I just like, all right. Here's what's on the plan. I'm gonna tell you a little bit something about what the plans are going forward in December and probably January as well, and then we're just talking about like a little bit about how I've experienced the last year, right? Bunch of personal stuff and maybe also some reflections on stuff that I've been trying and stuff that was interesting and stuff that worked and that didn't and all kinds of shit. Let's start with the schedule. The schedule is pretty easy. For all of you who are on Patreon, you probably have most of the content that is gonna come out in December already. It's like there's gonna be one or two episodes maybe of Technolize and Monster coming afterwards, but for the most part, we're gonna like end it at Technolize episode 14, plus minus one, right? Episode 14, and Monster episode, I think 40-ish. This is going to be all of the content that you will have during December. Monster mainly also because I saw that the one episode early access patrons actually got a double episode whammy, while the other patrons, like the 2 episode early access patrons, still have to wait for the big package of like the 3 episodes, 37, 38, 39, which was like the the finale of the arc basically. But you're gonna get that in the week after I record this, and I don't know when I upload it, so maybe even this week, but probably next week. And then there's one more episode of Monster coming after that, and that's probably mostly it for December, because I wanted to record a little bit ahead, get you all of the stuff that you are supposed to get and that I hope you can get, that will make you happy for the holidays. And then so strap yourself in, just line up all the videos and then plan them out for the holidays and whatnot, and then see where it takes you, because like probably early mid-January there's going to be a couple more episodes of Monster and Technolize, and then like February, like end of January, start of February, I have to study a lot again for my exams. But if everything works out, at this point in time I will be prepared enough to be like, okay, I can still record an episode or two here and there. But obviously priority is going to be Arcane. Arcane episode 2 just recently came out. Arcane, right, well, episode 2, act 2 basically of season 1. And for act 3 of season 1, the finale of season 1, this is probably going to drop shortly after Christmas. And then we're going to have like a 2 to 3 week period of pause, and then probably second week of January, if I get everything right, Arcane season 2 episode 1 is gonna, or act 1 is gonna drop, so the first 3 episodes. And then we're gonna start into episode, or into season 2, and do that in a 3 episode 1 act structure as well, where we do release a 3 episode reaction video, which is like probably gonna be like around 4 hours every time, and we release that roughly every 3 weeks, a little bit less than 3 weeks if I can help it, but roughly every 3 weeks. I'm trying to stay on the almost 2 weeks thing, because otherwise it would be basically like giving you 1 episode per week. But I do want to actually give you that act structure so you can see everything in one go, because I think that's the way the show was supposed to be experienced, and I think that's what a lot of people agree on. So there's that, right? So this is the schedule for now. ReZero is going to get picked back up in February when it comes out, probably a week after it starts airing again. And then we do have, I asked people on YouTube and Patreon first and then YouTube, what they wanted to have after Arcane season 2 is over, right? What we are supposed to watch then, to make some suggestions and stuff. And during all of December, I'm probably just gonna collect those ideas and like write some stuff down that could be very good to take it into the polls and whatnot. And I'm just gonna line it up, and probably sometime in January I'm gonna drop a poll on Patreon where I'm like, okay, like here is like 10 things I think are we could be watching after Arcane, and then the patrons are gonna decide which ones are they have the most priority in. And so I'm probably gonna make more of like a ranked choice system if I can make that happen, where I'm like, okay, like Google poll or whatever, give me what you like the most and what you like the least and whatnot, and then we're gonna kind of T-Boo style, we're kind of lining it up, and then we're gonna show, okay, what did the patrons actually like the most, and then we put the top, I don't know, the top 3 or the top 4 or whatever, we put that on a YouTube poll to ask all of the subscribers to actually rate what they want to have eventually, right, in the end. And then we have like, maybe, I don't know, either we decide based on that and we're just like, okay, we're going to react to that, or if there's like a tie somewhere, or if there's like potentially, if there's like people, or if there's like shows which are within 1 vote or 2 votes of one another, right? If it's very, very, very close, I might be asking my higher tier patrons to be like, okay, what do you actually want out of these? This might be a possibility. I don't know how popular this kind of decision making is going to be, but I do feel like the patrons should have a lot of say in what actually goes on to the show, because I don't like starting a new show just based on what the overall audience likes, and then people on Patreon are going to be like, well, I'm not interested in any of your shows right now, so I don't really see a reason to keep supporting you, right? I mean, obviously there's still a lot of people who are supporting me just because they want to see my discussions and just because they really like the channel continuing to exist. But obviously I do want to give the patrons that agency to actually be like, okay, among these, I don't know, 10, 15 shows, these are the ones we like the most. And then I can be like, okay, what does YouTube actually say to that? Which one out of these 5 or 6 top shows of Patreon of my patrons would they actually like to view? And I can kind of gauge what people are interested in. Maybe I even include an option where it's like, I'm not interested in any of these shows. You can just gauge if YouTube is like, nah, none of these shows are interesting to me. Because that's a big deciding factor, of course. It's like, I don't want to open up yet another show like Technolize and Monster, which are really, really cool, but also niche. So YouTube isn't all that excited about it, right? I'll do that after I finish Monster and Technolize, because that's better for the growth of the channel, that I can just like put Technolize and Monster into that slot category where it's like slow burn shows which have like a dedicated community that's always gonna watch, right? That oftentimes it's like a guaranteed watch of this many people, oftentimes 60 for me. And then it's like, but there's not a lot more people who are actually gonna watch it. I think the top views I got on Monster beyond like the first episode, which was I think 400-500 people, the top views I got on Monster was like 200 or 250 on those specific like Johan episodes, which are like, oh, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? But aside from that, we don't have these like big peaks and whatnot. So I do want to keep that in one slot. And I think it's important to keep that slot, obviously, because I think it's very important to watch these shows because they're very dedicated to a kind of storytelling and directing that is lost these days, that isn't as popular and as common these days. It still happens here and there, but it's a very unique style of presenting your kind of media that is more inherent to what old shows used to be doing, maybe due to technical limitations, but also they had to get creative, right? But also due to just the way they understood directing back in the day. So it makes perfect sense to me to kind of just put on these like slow burn masterpiece shows which are really interesting, really cool, we can get really deep into, but are not as hype for modern audiences. And then we have other slots for shows like seasonals, like ReZero, for example, that I'm often excited about. For example, I had shows like Dan Dan Dan, which I'm like kind of contemplating maybe doing after ReZero. Right, stuff like that. And yeah, Automata I wanted to look into, but it's not as popular. So, right, this is more of a show that's probably in one line with like what I did with the Spice and Wolf reactions. I need to finish those, by the way, and I do hope I can finish those at some point in time. I promise you I will finish them eventually, but we'll see when it actually happens. yeah, no promises when it happens. I need to make time for that. Either way, this is like kind of what I want to do. I want to have a show that is a little bit more popular, that has at least the potential for me to have a couple of thousand views for the most popular episodes, to have like new people coming in, new people being interested in it, people that are maybe searching for more recent stuff, or for stuff that's been like in the last couple of years been hype. And then we have shows which are older shows, which we can grind our teeth into and be like, holy shit, that was really, really really good masterpiece of its time. And this is why it was, and this is the interesting aspects about it. And I think I want to keep that balance. So yeah, the next poll, which is going to replace Arcane Season 2 when it's over, is going to be one of the more popular, more recent shows that maybe have some hype behind them, that maybe shows that maybe we can dig our teeth into, but also might have a Season 2 or a Season 3 coming up in some time, or for some other reason it's more in the current zeitgeist, right? I do know Frieren Season 2 has been announced, but that's probably way off and would definitely 100% guarantee Dictator react to that. so you don't have to worry about stuff like that. Or if there's ever gonna come a Season 3 of Made in Abyss, we're gonna react to that 100%. Don't you worry about that one. But yeah, so get ready for either January or February. I'm probably obviously gonna announce it when it happens, for the polls to be opened up for what's gonna replace Arcane eventually, when the Season 2 is gone, when we have finished that one up. Yeah, other plans. No big movie plans. Some people have mentioned like they would like to see me watch Akira, so that would be a cool thing to do at some point in time. I had that on my list a long time. I also know like Suzume, for example, which I have like really have heard really great things about, and I really like I don't know how is his name, Makoto whatever Shintai. I might be saying the name wrong, but these movies, I did love Your Name basically, but one movie I liked even more than that was Weathering with You. I think that kind of resonated more with me on like an idealistic level, on a level of like just uniquely representing the challenges and mindset of some of the current generations that I really vibe with, right? It's a lot about nature and our relation to it, right? And about modern problems, modern society, right? Being a young person growing up in this world and experiencing all of these stuff, right? On the one hand, harsh realities, and on the other hand, these hopes and dreams that we have, these points of connection that a lot of us share, right? And the way we see the world through our very unique lens, that connected to me a lot. I don't know in which category Suzume would fall, but it's definitely a very pretty movie from what I've seen on the promotional art and the trailers, and it's definitely something I find very cool. Madoka I have obviously watched already, since I'm a really big Shaft fan. Pause. But Walpurgisnacht Rising, definitely gonna react to that one when it comes out at some point in time. That is a big highlight of mine that I'm looking forward to. Obviously, we have our gaming going on. I might be doing a couple of like Disco Elysium, either probably not streams, probably more like Disco Elysium videos during the Christmas season. So you might see them popping up to kind of fill the void in the channel here and there. Spice and Wolf probably only gonna come out when I actually finish it up, right? When I start recording the last couple of episodes that I haven't reacted to yet, I might be posting the currently active arc that I do have on Patreon, might be posting those to YouTube to kind of fill another void. And other than that, like next year, there's definitely gonna be happening a bunch of stuff that might interrupt channel activities or whatnot. I will definitely commit to saying that my plans for the next year are that the channel activity is not going to stop for more than 3 weeks if I can help it, right? Obviously, sometimes you take your time and then you get sick or whatever, and I might be breaking my word. But if I can help it, I actually hope that for not more than 3 or 4 weeks we can we don't pause the channel activity for more than that. Obviously, whenever channel activity gets paused or there's an interruption, there's a week off or whatever, obviously Patreon is going to be the first one who is going to be hit. And then after that, in a delayed manner, oftentimes like 3-4 weeks later, you will feel that on YouTube, because then it's going to be like that Patreon starts back up again and YouTube kind of gets these like interruptions or whatnot. And sometimes that's just the case. Sometimes I try to spread it more, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave 1 week out here, and then the next week is going to be one again, right, that I still have in reserve from Patreon, and then it's going to be a week of no activity again, right? But we'll have to see how we balance that. I obviously don't want to leave the channel inactive for too long, because that's way bad for the algorithm. But yeah, that is a great transition to actually get us into a very interesting topic, which is the experiences I made throughout this year. So this has been my first year on YouTube, and it's very interesting to see how channels work on the other side of the perspective, because I've been like a watcher of reactions for a long time. I've been a watcher of like YouTube content in general for a long time, obviously. Big fan of all things internet, oftentimes, because I grew up here, right? This is like, a lot of people say like, oh, I grew up in this country and whatever. And yeah, I grew up in Germany, but I like to say like I grew up on the internet. And it's very interesting that I developed the way I did despite growing up on the internet, because obviously there's a lot of hate and vitriol and bias on the internet. That is an unfortunate reality of anonymity and other factors. Very much like until 1 or 2 decades ago, the internet was still very much very foreign to a lot of people. But people like my generation and the generation right after that, right, millennials, Gen Z, we kind of just, we grew up with the internet, right? When we were young, when we were like children, the internet was still kind of just like a concept, right? Email servers and whatnot. And we had the first consoles with like the PlayStation 1 and the Super Nintendo, right, and all of that stuff. And then we moved on to the PS2 and Xbox 360 and GameCube era. And we grew up with games. We grew up with modern digital media evolving as we ourselves evolved from a societal standpoint. And in many ways, that feels like this is your home in a way, right? Especially if you've spent a lot of time online as opposed to outside there, right, in the real world. Even though you, as a student, obviously you're always outside in the real world. But for me, like the internet, knowing people on the internet, right, making friends there, sharing interests, sharing hobbies, sharing experiences, from the early messenger services all the way to what we have today with our more close-knit Discord communities and forums and whatever you wanna count to that, YouTube, right, with the comment section and memberships and Patreon and whatnot. It's very interesting how all of this developed, and like more or less oftentimes this was my home because it felt like this was the place where I could be me, and this was the place where I could be secure, where I didn't have to mask in any way, where I didn't have to pretend I am someone else or kind of just conform to the standards of whatever social environment wanted me to. And I feel like this is the experience that a lot of people even these days make with the internet, right? That outside there, they still have to kind of adjust to the specifics. And on the internet, they can just maybe breathe and exist and just be themselves for a while without having to kind of just be confined within certain structures all the time. Even though there's certain rules, obviously, that should apply to the internet as well, right? Being respectful with one another and all of these things, right? But it feels a lot more free, and as such, I've always felt more connected to the internet. But I didn't start up YouTube till till like last year, right? I mean, I had an attempt at a YouTube channel, and shout out if you ever find that channel, like, great job. I had an early YouTube channel that is still in existence right now. It doesn't have a lot of subscribers, but I did Let's Plays, right? The Witcher, and I think that was around the time when The Witcher 3 came out. A little bit Metal Gear Solid 5, a little bit like Splinter Cell. I was big into stealth games back in the day. But yeah, all of this stuff. And it was fun, but back in the day, it wasn't sustainable because I didn't have the internet connection for it. Uploading would take like 6 or 7 hours, right, for a 24-minute video of 1080p footage, and it's absolutely impossible to actually keep that up unless you're really hardcore and actually can kind of make that happen. I know like people like the Anime Man or PewDiePie or whatever, they started like that, right? They were recording their videos and whatnot, and then they were just putting their computer on upload and leaving it on like all day and all night while they were out in school or doing like whatever they needed to do, work, whatever, and then they came back and the video was uploaded, and that's it, right? And that's just over and over and over again. I don't even want to imagine how it was back then with like editing and whatnot. These days we have these great, amazing free video editors that don't have all the features, but enough basic features to at least give you everything you need to make a good video, right? DaVinci Resolve has been used for actual fucking Hollywood movies, and it's a great program. Anybody who wants to get into video, like videos on YouTube or whatever, like content creation, I do wholly recommend DaVinci Resolve. It is a great tool with amazing features, and it will get you started for at least 1 or 2 years until you maybe want to look into the other programs and see if they pose any advantage over this. But at the moment, OBS and the DaVinci Resolve is enough for you to get you started, and this is what I'm using basically. But yeah, very interesting experience as a YouTuber, right? Starting this up and seeing that in the beginning, like in the very beginning, subscribers nearly explode, right? They go up, and then you have these stagnation phases, especially if you do like some series that are not as popular as in Monster and Technolize and whatnot, and you're doing like stuff that's maybe sometimes popular and sometimes not, and you do realize that there's certain patterns that happen. People who watch reactions oftentimes just watch the reaction portion of the video. They skip ahead before the intro, even though the intro might have some interesting details about what's gonna happen in the reaction, or it might be some scheduling stuff which might be interesting for you, but people don't care about that. Well, I would say people don't care about that. I know you out there who is watching my update videos, for example, you probably care about that, and you're probably one of the 5, 6, maybe 7% who are actually watching from the beginning to the end of a video mostly. But it is kind of can be sometimes really discouraging when you see that, right? When you do have like a graph where it's like you have like 500 people who clicked on your video and 90% clicked off after 0.40 seconds. Right? And you're like, okay, cool. And then you're like 30% of those are watching different portions of the reaction. And especially like the super hype moment is going to be clicked for 40, 50% of the audience that actually started, like clicked on your video initially. And then it dips down again. And you see like, oh, this is where it started the discussion. And it's 5%, right? 5%. What is 5% of 500 people? Think about that, right? It is literally, maybe my math is wrong, it's 25 people, right? So 25 people are really, right, maybe almost the equivalent of how many patrons I have. I think I have like 16, 17, at the moment a little bit more, but generally I have like something between 12 and 16 patrons right now. And this is like the equivalent of what that is, where it's like, okay, the patrons basically watch from the beginning to the end. They're like, hey, right, and even if they watch like the full-length reactions that they get on Patreon, they leave the YouTube thing running in the background with like muted tab, and they're like, okay, I'm giving you the view, which I don't know if that works, but I think it works, right? Also, by the way, interesting experience. You know what? Tangent. We're gonna do that later. But yeah, this is the reality of being a reactor. One of the reasons why I actually started doing separate discussion videos, because I did realize that when I'm having somewhat of like a surface level discussion in the first 5-6 minutes of the video, I can be like, okay, I like this about the episode. I really enjoyed this and that and whatnot. And then I can cut it off and I can be like, okay, let's get into the more detailed reaction, which then was an experiment for me to see how many people actually watched the discussion as opposed to how many people watched the reaction itself. And what I noticed is when I do these things, I do find that very little changes about how much of the video in terms of like the reaction is actually being watched, other than that the video is shorter and as such like a bigger percentage is watched, because that discussion part, that big discussion part that 95% of people don't watch, is actually not in there. So there's a bigger percentage that is being watched here. And the interesting thing is that when you switch over to the discussion, right, you link it in the description, whatever, like a good portion of people I have found, like 25 to 50% of the people who watch my reactions actually switch over to the discussion. But the thing is, while the amount of watch time is percentage-wise higher than as if I would be doing that as one single video, right, both of them, it is still the fact that out of, I don't know, 200 people who are clicking on the discussion video, there's like maybe 10-15% who are actually watching the entire video, and most of the people who clicked on it, they're going to click off after 5 minutes or something like that. So it's very interesting to see that in a way. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that is confounding these kinds of statistics, right? These analytics, because, for example, YouTube does, if you put your video on 2x speed, YouTube does only attribute you watching half of the video, basically. So they're like, for example, a video is 2 hours, specifically 2 hours, and you put like the discussion on 2x speed. So the discussion is 1 hour, just for simplicity's sake, the discussion is 1 hour. And you put that on 2x speed, that means it only calculates you watching 30 minutes. Because it calculates real time and not how much content you actually watch. Because for YouTube, it is, for some reason, just important that you stay on YouTube for all of your free time, basically. And so it is more valuable if somebody watches 1 hour of content in 1 hour than somebody watching 1 hour of content in 30 minutes. So it basically calculates that. A couple of YouTubers have made the interesting experiment where they actually put their videos on 2x speed, right, when they talk about simple concepts, and tell their viewers to actually put it on half-time speed, and then they get a lot more watch time percentage, which is obviously good for your YouTube statistics, because YouTube thinks that you're getting more more time that you're being viewed, and then YouTube is like, oh, I'm gonna push this video more because this is getting more watch time, which is kind of gaming the system, but YouTube hasn't fixed that as far as I know. So it's very interesting how all of that works, and sometimes very frustrating as well. Also, like, watch time is a big thing, right? Like the two big statistics for YouTube are how many views do you get, right? And how much watch time do you actually get? Because that determines how much traction your video gets, how much it's being pushed to different like main pages or to like the side recommendations or whatever. And that's like in combination with the click rate, which is like the impression click rate. Impressions means your video is kind of turning up on the start page or on like the recommendation somewhere, and somebody could be clicking on it. And like the impression click rate is basically how many people who are actually getting your video in their like recommendation timeline, how many of those people actually click on it. For me, for example, it's 3%. So if 100 people see my video, it's probably more 1,000 or like 5,000 or whatever. But if 100 people would see my video, then if 3 people would actually be clicking on it. If 1,000 people would see my video, 30 people would actually click on it, right? And this is how it works. And if your video is clicked unusually often, it gets recommended to more people, and as a result of that, more people will actually click it if the click rate stays roughly the same. Which, knowing as a psychologist, knowing about statistics, you do know that in terms of like how the click rate, like how representation works, you can be sure that once you have like 1,000 people maybe, or 2,000 people that are part of your data set, right? 2,000 people got recommended your video. You can kind of be sure that the percentage rate at which people click that, right? Like that 3%, which in this case is 30 people that click that, is kind of representative for all of like the population that could potentially see your video. So you do know that it doesn't matter if you get 1,000 views, or if you get 2,000 views, or if you get 20,000 views. In the end, the click rate will be roughly 3% in that case, which just changes the raw numbers, right? Like 2,000 people getting recommended your video means you have 30 people who, no, 60 people who actually click on your video, and 20,000 getting recommended the video means 600 people, right? It's just the dimensions of the raw numbers that will change. But yeah, watch time is a big thing, and sometimes I kind of regret that I'm looking so closely to that. But the reason I'm doing that is not because I want to like, I don't know, want to be the millionaire, YouTube millionaire, whatever, and earn a bunch of money out of that, and like just right, exploit people and maximize and profit and whatnot. I'm just trying to get my YouTube channel to a place which is comparable to a lot of other reaction channels, right? I want to have the reach to actually reach people with what I'm saying. And obviously what's most important to me is watchability, and that what I'm talking about is actually getting across to people, right? That people who are interested in my kind of analysis and discussion of my unique viewpoint on these things, my observations about the series and my appreciation of all of that, that these people actually get the chance to have my video in their recommendations and get the chance to click on it and maybe stick around if they're interested in it, right? That the more people actually are exposed to my channel, the more subscribers I have, the more views I get, the more I can actually show up in the timeline of somebody who could potentially be a future audience of mine, a future person who is my patron, a future person who is maybe just watching almost every one of my videos, which I, in and of itself, no matter if it's monetized or not, is already a great thing for me, right? So in a way, watch time and views is obviously just a means to an end, but I am kind of, by the system of YouTube and the algorithm, incentivized to kind of try to appeal to it, try to work towards it and find a way to actually make it happen for myself, right? To maximize the amount of time that people spend watching my videos. And one of the ways to do that was to actually split them into the reaction and the discussion portion. But I found that in many ways, I did not like that, despite the positive effects on it and like it increasing my watch time in general, increasing my views in general, right? Like imagine you have one YouTube video, which is like 1 hour 30 and 500 people click on it. Now imagine you split that in two, right? And it's like 45 minutes and 45 minutes, and 500 or 600 people, no, 500 people click on this one, the reaction video, and then an additional, I don't know, 200 people click on this one, right? One of them is 500 views, the other one is 700 views. That's already a big difference for a small channel like mine, right? And despite these positive effects, I often found that I can't bring it, like I can't kind of make that decision for every video because it wouldn't feel right for me. Because when I end a reaction and I start my discussion portion, oftentimes the problem I encounter is that I'm going all the way back to the start of the episode and we're going through it, right, from start to finish, and we're just looking at very interesting concepts about it. The problem is that when I don't include that in the reaction, then all you have is a reaction with barely with obviously transformative content in the sense of that I'm reacting to something, right? That I have emotions going on, that I have facial expressions, that I also kind of just quickly say my thoughts to certain things, right? As quickly as they can be said while the episode is going on without losing my understanding of it, right? And all of these things. But there's not much going on after that, right? There's not much discussion, and I don't see a big sense into like discussing an episode afterwards for just 5 minutes and being like, oh yeah, I did like this and that, because it's way easier for me on a mental level to actually go through an episode from start to finish. And while I'm going through it, to go to the places which I already know are important, are interesting for me, but also go over other places and realize, oh, this is also very interesting, or hey, I didn't notice that. And so making that clear distinction, right, that cut and be like, okay, 5 minutes after discussion, now we make a cut and now we start like the more in-depth in-depth discussion portion, that is hard to do, and it doesn't always work. In the case of Monogatari, for example, I realized it works, because for Monogatari, I basically went through it one time and I was like, okay, this is very interesting. And I brushed over some things because I was like, I don't know what to make of it yet, but it seems like this would be something to go further into, right? And so I'm going through it and I'm talking about general themes and story and what I expect and all of these things. And then afterwards, I can sit down and, I don't know, eat something, right? Make myself something to, like some dinner or whatnot, sit myself down and go through the episode piece by piece, maybe listen to portions again and whatnot, and write them down on like a list on a notepad or whatever on the PC, or on a block, right, by handwriting. And then once I've written all of the time codes down, I can basically sit down again and record myself going through each time code and highlighting what specifically I wanted to say about it. But the difference here is Monogatari is one of those series that is so rich and so deep, and every frame can be analyzed. But not every series allows for that, right? Most series allow for that to be happening 1 or 2 times within an episode, right? Maybe 3 times. But Monogatari, literally, like every couple of seconds, there is something that you can deep dive into. And that was why Monogatari itself was so great for these kinds of discussions. Or if you have a series like ReZero, where you have the light novel as source, you could sometimes just go into an after discussion and be like, okay, this is for all you light novel readers who are just here for the hype, who are just here to see whatever you read in the light novel that you really loved animated, right? Or complain about what the adaptation did wrong or whatnot. And this could be also a really cool idea, to be like, okay, this is an extra video that not as many people will watch, but a lot of people will still watch, and this will be really cool. But it only works for specific series. It only works for specific series, and this is why we have this I have this personal problem. I don't want to be like, okay, artificial cut because views, watch time, whatever. I don't want to be that kind of person, right? It's more important to me that you have an enjoyable experience and that everything feels cohesive, right? In terms of like the pacing as well, and in terms of how we naturally move from the reaction into the discussion. And that is very important to me. So this is why I did that as an experiment, to see if it improves watch time and views, which it does, by the way. But going forward, obviously, we will only do that in cases it makes sense. Which sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, and that's just how it is. But to go on from that, which like we can transition right into pauses, which I only recently introduced. And there's this constant debate about like what is good for the viewer experience, because I had a couple of comments where people are like, dude, can you stop pausing, or can you like do something better, because it's really hard for me to sync up the episode with your reaction and just watch it along and then sync it up back again when you have it paused or whatever, or when you skip sections or whatnot. And I do admit that this is not perfect, but I also know that a lot of people, honestly, frankly, are either my patrons who are getting the full length reaction anyway and don't have the problem of having to sync up, or people who are not really that interested in syncing up and watching every second of the video. So most of these people, if there is some basic sound, if there's some basic visuals that they can see, even if they're obstructed by, like, for example, the logo of the show or whatever, they will skip through it and they're gonna be like, oh, I wonder how he reacts in that moment, or what he says to that specific place, right? Because oftentimes it's like this is my guess, right? One of them is people are not interested in me as a reactor. They're just interested in my reaction to a specific hype moment, right? That is one type of reaction watcher. And the other type of reaction watcher is the person who is just interested in the core reaction and then doesn't care about discussion or anything else, right? Right? And sometimes they get bored during an episode and they're like, okay, this section is kind of really boring, so let me skip ahead 5 minutes to actually see what's happening there. And then there's the reaction watcher who doesn't have time, right? This is the person who is like, okay, I have my 3 reactors. I don't know, Tibu, autosave, Pink Cubed, right? I'm just naming them because those are kind of my top reactors. Flaming Shark too, but right, that's not neither here nor there, right? Psychologist occasionally, but a little bit longer reactions for me sometimes. I do admit that. Because they're streams, right? And that's kind of a different kind of format. But either way, very entertaining as well. But yeah, I have my like 2 or 3 reactors that I react fully to, right? That I have like from start to finish. I enjoy every second of it. I watch the entire video, right? And then they're like, I would love to do that for 5, 6, 7 more reactors, but I don't have enough time in my day. I have real life stuff, right? Work, school, whatever. And I do have to kind of get these other 10 reactors that I occasionally watch and kind of like, but don't like fanatically like, or am a really like big fan or supporter of. I would like to watch them, but I don't have the time to watch them all. So what I'm doing is basically I'm going into a reaction video and I'm kind of skipping through and I'm like, okay, what does he say to that? What does she say to this specific thing, right? Or watch part of the discussion or whatever, right? And these people don't sync up. And it seems that a majority of the YouTube audience in general doesn't sync up. And there's a couple of people who sync up who are very upset if I actually don't provide that timer and whatnot. And I do feel for you, right? Because I do understand. I do like to watch reactions from start to finish as well. But I do also understand the rest of the YouTube audience because occasionally I'm the same, right? I'm like, I need to study, I need to work, I need to do other stuff. And I don't have enough time to actually watch the full reaction of this person, but I still want to give them a view because it's interesting what they're saying. And I'm very interested in what they say to specific moments or what they talk about in the discussion. So I'm kind of skipping through and looking what was kind of the vibe that they had for this impactful moment or this specific episode or whatever. And then I'm skipping through as well, or I'm putting it on like 2 times speed or whatever. And I do understand both sides in a way. And I think that we can strike a balance, but obviously it will not be perfect for everybody. And it's kind of like Araragi, where he's like, Oshino, in Kizumonogatari, where he's like, Oshino, please help me. I need to find a way to make this like for everybody to be satisfied. And then Oshino is like, I can give you a way to do that, but I can give you a way that everybody will be like dissatisfied, right? And we're kind of at that moment, right? We're kind of at that moment where it's like not everybody will have what they want. But I will do everything I can to actually improve the process of syncing up. So if you have any suggestions of how syncing up could work better, do let me know, right? Anything that makes it easier for you all to sync it up, to actually do it. I was contemplating about maybe doing something like Tibu does with like the traffic light system, but I would have to do that multiple times in the episode, of course, whenever we start up again. And maybe the time codes aren't as important, and the important thing for you all is maybe putting a time code up that is like the general time code from start to finish, but also like whenever I stop or skip over a section, be like, okay, have like a minor time code that is kind of counting down, where it's like 3 seconds until I start it up again, right? Like, and it's kind of underneath the main time code, where it's like -3 seconds, and it runs down to the 0 point, and the 001 is the first frame where I start up again, and then it's going on. Maybe that's better for you all to actually sync that up properly. I do feel like for syncing up, it's also very important to have like the audio be present. So in the beginning of the sync up, there needs to be an audio. Generally, I do have audio because a lot of people like to watch it with audio and don't bother to get up the episode or whatever. So I need to kind of strike that balance and find a way for people to actually still enjoy it and everything. But if you have any other interesting ideas, like I had another idea, which was like maybe for the couple of like the handful of people, 10 people, 12 people who actually want to sync up, I can provide them with a link of an unlisted video where they can actually watch the thing from start to finish completely synced up. Obviously, there would be the pauses, but I would cut out the pauses in between so they can basically just watch it from start to finish with maybe, I don't know, so 5 to 20 frames off, basically. So they wouldn't be unsynced, and the reactions would still be timely enough for them to be like, okay, this makes sense, right? This is like, the only thing they would be losing is a couple of frames of sync up time, which shouldn't be too much, right? 24 frames in a second, so they would be losing probably a second or less in terms of the sync up. So that could be an option for you all. It would, obviously, I wouldn't profit from it because I would disable the ads for all of that and whatnot. So, and they would be unlisted, so I wouldn't get like thousands of views. I would just get like maybe 20 or 25 views if it comes down to it. But if that makes it easier for you, I will definitely consider it to kind of just put that like the full-time sync up reaction on like maybe free Patreon membership or something like that. But for everybody who actually is new and doesn't know and has made it this far into the video, first of all, thank you very much. And second of all, there is the Patreon available to you, right? You can see like the full-length reactions with I'm not including the entire episode. I'm not including all the visuals. I'm not including all the audio, but we can be a bit more lenient with that when it comes to that. So it should be a more enjoyable experience in general. And it's available for like €1. So it's basically the lowest tier that is possible. And mainly just, I would even do it for like 50 cents or something, but I'm more like, you need to be €1 or above for it to actually make sense in terms of how the pricing structure of Patreon actually works. Technically, I would have to be above, I think, €3 even in order for it to have less of a revenue deficit for me and more like fees on Patreon and whatnot, because the way it's calculated is just like if you do one. All right, I left the window open now because apparently this is the second time that my camera actually turned itself off because it had too high a temperature. After just a very short time of recording, I've recorded like 5 hours with this thing without any hitch in terms of like temperature, and sometimes it just shuts off after an hour. I don't understand. But anyway. Yeah, do let me know what I can do to make it better in terms of the sync stuff. Other than that, obviously what that means is pauses are here to stay. Yeah. And the reason for that is just watch time, right? People listen more closely and they just listen to what I have to say when I pause during the episode and I'm saying my piece, but like an observation I have, a thought that I have, an interesting thing that I specifically want to highlight about this scene or the thing that just happened. And people continue to watch it. Maybe you've seen the recent video by Kaka, or maybe you've seen the Twitter or X post by Psych by Ed, where they talked about just the long form reaction analysis content not always getting the attention not always getting attention from everybody, but that one of the main reasons people like me and people like them actually make their content is also because they want to have an audience that actually listens to that actually listens to what they have to say in terms of discussions, the insights that they have, and the things they want to get across, or the things they themselves can provide as a content. Because obviously we are not necessarily there is a place in the YouTube sphere for having people who react mostly by not who react without a discussion, and who react with their emotions, who react just with their own perceptions of the immediate things that they see and that they experience during watching. It's basically like watching something with a friend next to you. Normally you don't just be like, okay, analyze the psychological structure. What do you think about this character? Who could be? No, oftentimes you're just you're just very emotional. You're like, oh shit, I can't believe that happened. Oh, fucking hell, are you serious? And then after the episode, you're what, that episode was crazy, man. And yeah, no, holy shit, dude. Like, that kid, holy fuck, I feel so bad. And then that was your discussion, basically. So I understand it, right? And there is a place for that, definitely, because we do, like, reactions fill that hole of like us trying to belong, us trying to be reconfirmed in our own feelings and emotions, to see how other people like reflect the same things, connect to the same moments. And that is something very, very beautiful on all aspects, right? Be that when it comes to music, be that when it comes to anime, be that when it comes to other stuff in media, games, for example. But I do think that me and a lot of like long-term Yap reactors really want to also have that aspect filled, where you do feel like wanting to explore what other people like see through their own lens, right? Their point of view, their unique perceptions of things, and how they have maybe learned to take up and pick up media in terms of media literacy. Some people will be very literate in a certain form of media, for example, anime, and will then be relatively lost in the beginning when they start watching Western animation shows, or maybe Western like live action shows and stuff like that, and they'll be very, very different in what they pick up and what they don't pick up. And also in terms of just like general storylines, which character they emphasize with the most, what point of views they see that you maybe don't see, or what point of views you out there see and put down in the comments below that I and other reactors don't see. And I think that is the kind of culture I want to have here, where we discuss about things, where we're like, hey, you did, like, the way I interpreted that specific scene was like that, was completely different from yours. But also just like, oh, thank you very much for actually seeing it the way I did. I have not heard anybody talk about it in that way before. And that is the cool experience, that we can kind of just put our thoughts out there and are like, and combine that with the specific things we're doing. Ed and me, for example, which like Ed is already a therapist and I am striving to become one day. And that we can kind of just from what we've learned, pick up a lot of interesting things, but also learn a lot of things from you out there that can help us down the line with our job, maybe even, right? Because media reflects, in a lot of ways, media reflects what people think about, what people care about, what touches people on the inside, right? But it also reflects an art form. And as all art, there's a lot of beauty and skillfulness in that, be that from drawings all the way over musical cues and even directing, right? Setting a shot right, being able to display an emotion just by the way you change the perceived camera angle of a thing. That is amazing to me. I've only gotten into that like a year or two ago when one of my best internet friends actually started studying that, right? Like media and art and direction and all of that, and started getting interested in movies and all of that, and we started watching movies together and stuff, and that's really cool. But yeah, pauses are here to stay. A couple of months down the line I might ask again how you feel about pauses and whatnot, but either way they're here to stay, and I do hope that they improve the channel watch time, and that they also improve how you maybe are interested in my post discussions, that you see, okay, he stopped here and talked about something very interesting. Maybe the post discussion is also interesting for me. But yeah, we talked about the schedule and things to come. I want to say, like, I'm very interested in gaming, so if there's something interesting coming up down the line, or maybe we can do a gaming stream every once in a while if people are interested in that, if the Discord is more active and stuff like that, and it will be more convenient to actually inform people about my plans to possibly stream, then maybe we can make something happen. Disco Elysium is here to stay, but also we might possibly do some other things. I played Hollow Knight in the past, so I'm really excited for when Silk Song actually comes out, when it ever comes out. and some other stuff as well, right? I love the indie games. I played stuff like Sunless Sea right with Cthulhu stuff. I love FromSoft games, so there's that. I played probably most FromSoft games, so there's nothing new for me to play except for like Shadow of the Erdtree, which I haven't. But either way, I'm open for everything, so do make your suggestions if you want to. But yeah, let's get actually into the last part of the video, which is, first of all, I want to thank all the patrons that came here at this point in time. All of the people that joined us during December and November, especially when Arcane popped off and everything else. I do want to thank all of you, and I do hope you feel welcome here and you do get something out of your patronship, or at the very least, like, you have fun while you stay here and while you're subscribed. And obviously there's series coming down the line and there's possibly polls and whatnot. Just keep your eyes out for that. That being said, probably, I don't know if this is an easy way. Let me talk a little bit shop out of my own life, right? The last year was really interesting because it was very, very new for me to make this experience, right? To grow as a YouTuber, start experimenting with different ways to edit stuff, right? Start implementing like the sub button and whatnot. Even those are like custom animations made by me, obviously made based on what I've seen other people recommend how to do that. But yeah, and like upgrading from my like webcam to an actual camera, going from like more or less passable mic to something a little bit more advanced. Sorry about that. Or just making sure that all of the audio filters and everything works out well, and figuring out the lighting of everything, which I really am happy with at this point in time. The formatting of videos, figuring out how to edit videos to not waste your time, because oftentimes I do feel like maybe that's the result of somebody who generally watches YouTube videos as at 1.25, 1.5, or 2.0%, that I experience myself as talking very, very slowly, despite when I actually look at other people's videos, they have roughly the same pace. So I guess that's just how it is. But yeah, and evolving, right? Seeing how my numbers grow, seeing what people give me as feedback, seeing how people enjoy it as well, because that really keeps me going, and that's beautiful. I think like I was really happy about all of the patrons that joined, because in my personal life there's been a lot of stress about just getting out content regularly so that YouTube is satisfied and my patrons are satisfied, and I can actually, because I feel like I have kind of a responsibility toward everybody who's kind of supporting me, because I feel this is something important to kind of just be like giving back to people who put their trust in you. And I as you've seen, we are at 1,000 subs now, which I'm really happy about, which means I'm a YouTube partner officially, which means that I kind of low-key start making money, but not at day zero, obviously, because like it takes, I think you need $100 for like 100 euros or dollars first before you can get paid out, which is probably going to take a while for me. But at the very least, I do feel like this is yet another stone in the wall that is starting to build, that the foundation that is starting to be built, that is this YouTube channel, where we can maybe branch even further out as the audience grows larger, further than just gaming and reaction videos. And that is an ambition that I have long-term probably, and that I should maybe communicate with you, which is I really, really want to do essay videos. I don't know if I ever get to do them, because the reaction pipeline is kind of in a way that you're almost in a treadmill and always just kind of getting the next one out, and you could always be getting more out and all of that stuff, right? And then there's the patrons, and then there's official YouTube releases, and it's just, right, and editing and all of that stuff. And before you have any real money, right, you can't pay an editor, so you have to do all of that yourself, right? You can't pay, or you can't like hire or have any mods if your community is this small, all of that stuff. So there's still a lot of like investment and time that is going into this channel that is way out of proportion from what I'm actually getting out of it. Now, obviously, as I've said, I'm not somebody who is like all about the money, but obviously, if I would be earning enough money, I could be dialing back my side job, or I could be giving it up entirely and just be like this being my side job, basically, because I'm still primarily a student, but I don't get any financial aid for my studies until I reach the master's degree again. So what I'm doing right now is I'm working on the side, right? I'm studying, which is not full 100% full-time study, mind you. I have a lot of stuff that I've already done and just a couple of things that I still have to do. For example, an internship, which I have to do next year, right? Sometime until July probably. And then I have to write applications for the master's degree programs and whatnot. But yeah, I have to do an internship until then. This internship will probably be 2 to 3 months. So that is a thing. And during that time, I actually have to keep studying, doing some seminars and whatnot to get my degree. I do have, and that internship is part of the degree as well. And I do have to work in order to finance my living space here and food and whatnot, right? And health insurance and all of that jazz. And I do have to also I do want to also still provide you with some content on the YouTube channel. So there's a lot that's flowing into that. If my side job would be falling away because I'm earning enough here on YouTube and on Patreon and all of that, obviously that would change in my world entirely, basically. I could focus on this and then obviously still do the internship and do my studies, but would have one pillar falling away from that. One pillar that is like a good deal of hours in a week, probably like 14 to 20 hours a week as well, right? So in general, I'm in an impasse anyway at the moment because I recently lost my job. Don't like to say that, and probably for everybody who's like this far into the video, you all are probably supporters who care about this kind of stuff as well. And not people who are just tuned into the video and want to just see what's going on. Yeah, I've worked like in the last 6 months. I've worked at a place which is taking care of people who are who have various mental issues and whatnot. Just in terms of like just passively taking care, not in terms of therapy, because I'm not allowed to do that yet as a student. But yeah, the place didn't want to take me over after these 6 months. Normally 6 months is like the trial period over here in Europe and whatnot. And after that, they need a real reason to fire you. So they did it before they actually had to find a real reason, because I think, like, personally, I think I was doing my job pretty well. And as far as I know, my colleagues liked me mostly and thought I was doing good work as well. So very much a shame, actually, because that place already has not enough people, but I mean, we're not gonna talk about it, okay? Right? The essential thing is I'm looking for a new job right now at the moment. Hopefully I'm gonna find something soon, early in the year and whatnot, so I can keep financing myself, and otherwise it might become relatively difficult. So I'm living off of savings right now. If there's any time to actually support me, it's probably right now. That would probably be the best time to actually get a boost of support. But obviously, I can't immediately give up any job I would be finding, because I don't know if that support's gonna stay around. So I have to kind of carefully balance that out. But either way, like certainly if there's a boost in popularity and in my earnings and all of that, there could be the possibility maybe a couple of months down the line to find a way to actually do a job that is less hours in a week, right? Or less hours in a month in general. So I have a reduced like schedule, which I could be putting more into what I'm doing right here, right? Maybe an additional reaction slot, maybe some other stuff that I could be doing on the sides, plans I wanted to do for a long time, which, as we've talked about it just now, essays. I love YouTube video essays from a very, very early age on, be that essays about gaming franchises and stuff. There's, for example, Noah Caldwell-Gervais, I think that's his name. You talk about it like French kind of, but yeah, he's like an American who's traveling, who's doing partially like traveling logs with his with his bus and whatnot, is traveling through all of America and talking about like the history of the places and really like interesting landscapes and whatnot. But he's also kind of connecting that to his passion for video games, which is like the Fallout franchise, like the FromSoft games, all of these things that he's played over the course of the various years that he's been doing that with like long form 2 to 3 hour video retrospectives on different series and experiences that he made with video games and how they relate to real life, like metaphorical concepts, philosophical strains of thought, or like just landscapes in general and mindsets. And it always really cool for me. I've watched stuff like Broadsword in the past, was talking about like, I think like anime partially in Western animation, mostly animation series. I mean, I've also looked at videos of Mother's Basement and other people in the anime space. Glass Reflections is something that pops up in my mind here and there, right? These are people who are like putting down reviews or doing like actual interesting thought pieces on various series that they liked or that they consider to be masterpieces. And I really like to do that. I had those plans to do these as early as when I was about to finish Frieren at the end of last year, or at the beginning of this year, where I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a script for actually what I could be doing with that and whatnot. And I started that, but reactions were kind of getting in the way, and then the job, and then the university and all of that. So there's like a bunch of stuff, of loose threads of sentences or interesting concepts and thoughts that I had put down on a blog somewhere that's like lying around in my room somewhere, that is like the very early beginnings of some kind of script. But I'm not like, I'm new to this shit, so I need to figure that out. I need to figure out, how do I actually build that up, right? What do I like? Do I put myself into, like, do I put up a theory first and then I'm trying to retroactively kind of work my way towards it? Or do I just go into something exploratively and then look at different aspects and see which strand of theory or interesting aspect I can highlight from that? But this is like a creative process, so it's going to take weeks, months, whatever. This is one of the reasons why, in addition to like spending time with family and then like relaxing a bit, I do want to use the holidays to actually get some time off of recording stuff, or mostly off of recording and editing stuff, so I can actually spend some time to think about that a couple of days here and there, to actually make that happen down the line. Maybe not in early 2025, but at the very least at some point in time in the future, I want to actually go back to some of these series. This is stuff I wanted to do for a long time. Made in Abyss or Frieren, or all of these, which I found very, very enriching experiences for me personally. And I want to kind of just go back and reflect on the characters and how their dynamics worked, and how the story personally touched me maybe as well, and what messages I took away from it. So these are things that interest me and that I want to do long term, but obviously I do need to find the time to actually do them, and need to actually develop that script, that pipeline, which I already have for reactions, right? For reactions in the beginning, it like every reaction took hours upon hours upon hours to actually make, because I didn't know what to actually do. First of all, in the video editor itself, right? Adjusting things and whatnot, right? Sometimes I spent like one complete day designing a little single animation that's like 20 seconds in the video or whatever, or like little techniques, or finding out just the right audio balance or whatnot. And then you develop these things, and over time they become automatic, right? They become like it's much like you developing as a human, where you do certain things, and in the beginning as a child or as a teenager you still have to learn them and do them consciously, and at some point in time you start doing them subconsciously. It's like just like that, click 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 click. But you have, each time you do something new, you actually have to develop something new. But this is something I want to do for my content and channel. I don't want to be in a place where I'm complacent. I don't want to be in a place where I'm just like, okay, I'm drifting along, I'm just doing shit, I'm shooting the shit, whatever, right? I want to be creative. I want to be trying new things. I want to be making interesting experiments. I want to actually see interesting new shows that are possibly sometimes also outside of my comfort zone and whatnot, right? These are things that I want to make happen. And I do hope I can make that happen down the line. And for that, I need time, I need creativity, and I need especially probably the financial support long term to actually do that. Maybe, hopefully, in a master's degree, it's going to be a little bit less problematic, because then I will get financial aid to actually finish my master's degree throughout those roughly 2.5 years. And then I can, and then I don't have to work as much. I still have to work probably if YouTube doesn't, like if YouTube/Patreon doesn't give me enough, but at the very least, I will only have to work maybe one day in a week at that point in time. And then I can focus on university as well as the channel to actually make things happen. But yeah, like I said, if there's any time to actually support me, it's right now, because I'm kind of swimming, basically, trying not to go under, which is maybe sounds a little bit more traumatic than it actually is, because I do have some savings and probably going to be able to provide for myself for a couple of months until I find a new job. And I'm actively searching for a new one already, while I'm also searching for an internship, which kind of conflicts one another to some degree, because when I have an internship where I work like 3 or 4 days a week, I only have a couple of days a week where I could actually be working a normal like student job or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna make it happen some way. I can't promise you anything in exchange for giving me money, right? Aside from the obvious like early access stuff and just being able to support me, and occasionally voting on polls, which probably a poll is going to be every 4 to 5 months or something. So it's not going to be anything that's going to be happening every month. And obviously your name in the credits, as always. My eternal thanks, as always. Oftentimes, I don't keep the list for everybody, but oftentimes, like people who have supported me for multiple months, I do kind of keep that in the back of my head and then write them kind of down on a list. And I'm like, okay, these are members who are free members at this point in time, but they used to support me, right? They're like, and this list is also on Patreon. Obviously, I can see that in Patreon, that if somebody supported me at some point in time, that's kind of listed. So I do see that. And I do appreciate it, even if people can't support me every month, or if they only occasionally do that. Every time I appreciate if somebody joins, and I don't mind if somebody's like, okay, I'm going to join, and then they immediately cancel because they know that they gotta figure out if they can actually afford to support me next month. That is perfectly fine. I understand that 100%. Personally, I'm Patreon wise, I'm supporting, I think at the moment, I'm supporting Tibu and Sal and Pink Cubed, and that's about it, who I'm supporting. Obviously, there's a couple of people who I'm autosave. I think I'm on the autosave 1 week early access list. So shout out Ben and Anna if you ever watch that. Keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing. Don't worry about the slower pace recently. I think most of us reactors 100% understand, and a lot of people who watch reactions also do. But yeah, other than that, it's Christmas soon, actually, which I'm really looking forward to seeing family again and doing some stuff. And I recently picked up a new hobby. My flatmate actually was in that hobby already, or was into that hobby already. Did that a while, which is bouldering. You might have picked that up when I've like in. Maybe not, right? I think I talk about it in part 3 of the Arcane reactions, which I recorded just recently. Probably isn't even on Patreon yet, but yeah, that's a lot of fun. That is like occupying a decent amount of my time, which is like really fun to pick out the roots and find your own strength, develop in your ways, right? conquer stuff that you haven't last week, which is really cool. Work on problems, think about these things. I like to dig myself into these things. The question is, how long do I stick with it? That's often the question for many things. But hey, it's the same for games. Oftentimes, like, or D&D or whatever, like I put myself into it and then I try to figure out interesting things to work with it and to develop. And sometimes I stick with it, and sometimes I don't do it for a while and I pick it up again or whatever. But it's a lot of fun right now. I'm in the honeymoon phase, mind you. I don't know much about it yet, and there's a lot of information, and I'm just taking it all in and having fun with it. and it's a great thing to just explore new things. And all in all, I mean, I don't know if you actually let me just duck away so you don't have to see my face and see if it actually focuses my hand. It's like, this is one of the things where I'm like, yeah, 100%. These are like the downsides. Let's just put it next to my face so it focuses that. Yeah. But I mean, this is gonna go away in like a week or two, and I had a lot of fun doing it anyway, right? Despite a little bit of pain and blood happening here and there. But yeah, that's a really cool thing I'm doing like once a week at the moment. Almost like a replacement for the gym right now, because I'm not going to a gym. I've done that for, I mean, almost 10 years I've been working out, but like the last year over was so stressful and so busy that I didn't have the time to do that. And now I'm kind of picking up physical activity again, because it's not good to go too long without physical activity. The body and the mind are a unit. They complement each other, and both of them should be healthy and fit and whatnot. So I'm slowly making my way towards slightly better nutrition, slowly making my way back into physical activity with this newfound boost of like having a new hobby. Anybody who likes bouldering, do let me know if you would like me to make a video or two about bouldering. Obviously, I'm a beginner, so I can't give out any hints or tips or whatever or advice, but at the very least I can kind of maybe kind of keep a little bit of an eye on my own progress and what I've learned for myself and whatnot, and what practice I'm doing for it and all of that stuff. Maybe put it into YouTube Shorts or something. That would be a potentially cool thing to do, but or into like a Patreon exclusive like videos where I'm like, hey, what's up? This is what I've been doing this week. Occasionally, not every week, probably, of course. Maybe once a month or something. But do let me know if you'd be interested in that, or if you feel like not particularly. That's fine either way. But yeah, I think we're getting to the end of the video. I've recorded way too long. I think this is like a 1 hour update video. Most people will probably not watch that much, but either way, I hope you all are having a very, very fantastic Christmas, holiday, vacation, whatever you want, whatever you want to call it. A great start into the new year, especially. I mean, you'll probably be seeing me before the new year again, right? In terms of like some of my reactions, or maybe a Disco Elysium episode. But either way, I'll wish all of you happy holidays, a great start into the new year. I hope that everything that you want to make happen next year actually gets a good start, and that it succeeds. And I'll see you next time, right? Thanks for all the support. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the likes and the views and everything, right? Everybody who interacted with my channel in some way, thank you. And I'll see you next time.